is the way.
This is the way.
Well, after 2+ years, we finally continued the story of The Mandalorian, so let's dive into Season 3 premiere, Chapter 17, titled The Apostate. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of these videos, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help out and gives me the opportunity to create more content for you. Okay, let's get into it. Everything about this episode from the start is meant to draw you back all the way to the very first episode of The Mandalorian Season 1. We start off with the intro as we hear hammering, which is a callback to Chapter 1 The Mandalorian, when we heard a ping from Din's bounty fob played over the intro. Here we learn it's the armorer who's making a new helmet, which is painted, finished, and brought out of the cave in a major ceremony. Now, at first I thought this was a flashback and the boy in the water getting his Mandalorian helmet would be Din, but the idea is quickly turned on its head. The boy is named Ragnar, and we get to see him swear to follow the creed, and he dons his first Mandalorian helmet. Now, I love the symbolism in the ceremony. The boy is standing in the water, which in many cultures symbolizes rebirth. This is very in line with the storytelling of Star Wars, since George Lucas would draw from the shared core principles of religions here on Earth to create the Force. This element gives the Mandalorian culture more of a rich feel, and I love that we get to see this ceremony, and I hope we see more of what makes a Mandalorian in canon this season. So the ceremony stops short when we see a giant alligator-like monster bust out of the water, and the children of the Watch have to fight it back. During the battle, we see that the covert has many new foundlings, and the older Mandalorians try to fight off the monster. We see Paz Vizsla assuming command and leading the strike. He even aggressively saves Ragnar by pushing him out of the way of the monster, and it felt very in line to his character how he did it. Each season's premiere episode involves battling a large monster, from the Ravenik that Din stuns on the planet Pagadon in Season 1 to the Krayt Dragon that we see in Season 2. Now Din comes to save the day and is modded out Naboo N1 starfighter. This scene in particular shows once again Din Djarin is one of the best Mandalorians out there, as he quickly kills the creature and his fighter to help out the tribe. After Din and Grogu land, they meet the armorer, and this scene does a very good job in threading the line to help the audience understand where we're at and where we're going. The armorer reiterates to Din that he is no longer a Mandalorian, and Djarin brings up the creed and that it speaks of redemption, and a Mandalorian can actually be redeemed if they bathe in the living waters below the mines of Mandalore. The armorer counters by saying that the redemption is no longer possible since the planet Mandalore was destroyed in the Great Purge. Din reveals that he has a green crystal that has Mandalorian inscriptions on it. He says that he got it from a Jawa who acquired it, but probably stole it from someone who explored Mandalore. The armorer looks at it and says it's proof that Mandalore has been crystallized by fusion rays. While the armorer looks at this crystal in despair, Din looks at it with hope, and he tells the armorer that if someone was able to obtain this on Mandalore, then maybe the planet isn't poisoned and that the mines of Mandalore can be reached. Din then proposes to travel to Mandalore and prove the mines and the living waters exist. The armorer pauses and accepts Din's new quest by telling him this is the way. Din leaves the planet and heads for Navarro, but on the way, while they're traveling in a hyperspace tunnel, Grogu peers out and sees a massive purrgil, and the camera pans out to reveal an entire flock of these space whales traveling in hyperspace. This was an amazing shot and the first live-action appearance of these creatures that not only can survive in outer space, but can also travel in hyperspace organically. They were last seen in Rebels when Ezra Bridger called upon them with a force to attack the Star Destroyers on Lothal. Seeing them is a definite nod to Ezra. Could we possibly see him show up this season? Let me know in the comments. Then Din and Grogu get to Navarro, which we are shown has grown and improved since the last time we saw it back in Season 2. Now, recently in an interview, Jon Favreau clarified the timeline, and he said that Season 1 and Season 2 of The Mandalorian took place over many years, and that Grogu was apart from Din Djarin and training with Luke for 2 years. So Season 3 officially picks up 2 years after Season 2, which explains why Navarro is now so built up and different. They meet up with Greef Karga, who proclaims that he is now the High Magistrate, and I liked how they were using 2 little droids to hold up his massive cape from touching the ground. That was a nice little touch. They catch up and Din tells Greef that he can't stay because he has a new quest, and Greef's assistant droid tells him that there are some pirates causing trouble at the school, so Din and Greef go down to investigate. We then get to see some pirates wanting to enter the school because it was once a bar they used to frequent. Now their band of pirates are made up of a bunch of alien species, and I love that we're getting to see a lot more aliens in this series, which I felt was lacking from Andor. There was a Trandoshan, Klatooinians, and the leader was a Nikto named Van, who after a shootout, they let go and we learn he works for Captain Gorian Shard. After this, Greef explains that he needs a new marshal and offers Din the position, and didn't ask what happened to Cara Dune. So we learn at this point that Dune brought Moff Gideon to the New Republic, and Gideon was sent to a war tribunal, and Cara was recruited to Special Forces, essentially writing off the character. Personally, I wish they would have not fired Gina Carano, and I enjoyed her character in the last 2 seasons. As a showrunner, I'm pretty sure Jon Favreau didn't have much control over the decision Disney made and had a difficult task of explaining her absence. I thought they handled it okay, and it does make sense. Cara Dune is still in the galaxy far, far away, and maybe, just maybe, at some point, they can bring her character back. Din tells Greef that he can't be his marshal because he has a quest, but he wants to resurrect IG-11 from the remaining parts on the statue. So then they attempt to repair him, but IG-11 reverts back to his base programming and tries to kill Grogu. The assistant droid ends up stopping him by knocking a bust of Greef Karga on top of IG-11, and in full dad mode, Din's quick with a dad joke by commenting, "Now that's using your head." Now, I know some of you out there might not have liked him saying this, but I absolutely loved it. Don't hate. Then Greef takes Mando to some Anzellan droid smiths, who are the same species as Babu Frick from Rise of Skywalker, which I'll admit is one of the few things I actually enjoyed about episode 9. I love that Grogu tries to hold one, and my kids absolutely thought they were adorable. The Anzellans tell Din that they can't fix IG-11 without a new memory circuit, and that it's really, really hard to find. They're very rare. I like this detail and love the fact that bringing IG-11 back wasn't just a quick fix. This is ending up being a major undertaking, and I very much like that, and will make IG-11's return feel more earned. Din says he'll find the memory circuit and return, so Grogu and Din leave Navarro, and while they're leaving, we get a nice little moment between Din and Grogu as he teaches his young foundling about how to navigate space. We're seeing in this episode that the Mandalorian is playing the part of teacher and fully committing to train Grogu as a Mandalorian. Perhaps we'll get to see Grogu at the end of this season getting his own helmet ceremony, which would be poetic to start and end the season in this tradition. Then we see Zane, the Nikto pirate, attack Din alongside other pirates, and we get an amazing battle in the asteroid belts, fully calling back The Empire Strikes Back, and even giving us a score reminiscent of the asteroid chase in episode 5. I love the score in this episode, and the composer stepping into Mandalorian this season is Joseph Shirley, who took over Ludwig Göransson's post on the Book of Boba Fett. He did a fantastic job with his score on that show, and I already think he's knocking it out of the park in this episode. This scene feels fun, and Mando takes out all the pirates, except for one, once again Zane, who has survived twice now, and I'm not sure I like this, but I'm sure it will play off in later episodes. We then get to see Captain Gorian Shard on the pirate ship, and I gotta say, he looks straight ripped out of DC Comics because he looks like a space version of Swamp Thing to me. Shard tells Mando he'll spare his life if he turns over his ship, and Din tells Grogu, "Never trust a pirate," and blasts out of there. Great advice, by the way. Once again, Din's just playing his part as the best dad in the galaxy. Then Din takes Grogu to the planet Kalevala, which is a planet in the Outer Rim that resides in the Mandalore system. It's also the home world of House Kryze, where Duchess Satine and her sister Bo-Katan were born, and we get to see our first Mandalorian castle in live action, and it looked beautiful. I loved it. Din meets up with Bo-Katan, who is casually sitting on her throne, feet propped up and all. Din tells her he's ready to join her to take back Mandalore. But we learn that Bo-Katan's followers, including the Night Owls, have abandoned her and her quest to take back Mandalore because she didn't win the Darksaber. They all return to being mercenaries. She asks Din if he still has the blade, and he confirms that he does. Mando tells Kryze that he intends to return to Mandalore and bathe in the living waters to be forgiven for his transgressions. Then Bo-Katan calls Din a fool, but Din remains respectful to Bo-Katan. I actually really like this about the Mandalorian. It shows his high character. Bo-Katan explains to Din that the mines were only used for obtaining Beskar ore for their ancestors, and that there's no magic in them, and tells Din to go home because there's nothing left, and that Mandalore has been poisoned, plundered, and polluted. But Din reminds her that she said that the planet being cursed was just a lie, and to make up her mind. Then Bo tells Din that the mines are actually located under the Civic Center in Sundari. So now he's got a location on Mandalore, which if you didn't know, Sundari is the capital city of Mandalore. We got to see it time and time again in Clone Wars. Din vows to find out if Mandalore has truly been poisoned, and he leaves. Now in season 3, we're seeing Bo-Katan at her lowest point, and Keith from Not Your Status Quo had a great theory, and he said by the end of the season, Bo-Katan will set aside her warrior path and become a peaceful Mandalorian like her sister Satine. I think it's a great theory, and a lot of stuff is pointing to that happening in this show. So to me, this season seems to be all about atonement, not only for Din but for the armor and Bo-Katan as well, two factions of Mandalorians, which we see bring us into the episode and then end the episode. I felt that the armor felt hopeless at the beginning of this episode, and Bo-Katan did as well at the end. Our through line here is Din Djarin, who will help each faction grow and work together to usher in a new age of Mandalore. I believe that we're headed excited for Din uniting the clans and taking back Mandalore by the end of the season. And another theory I have is about the Nikto pirates. In season 1, Din kills a bunch of Niktos to retrieve Grogu in chapter 1. Maybe there's more to the pirate story than we think. Perhaps they're the ones who had Grogu, and I think Palpatine is the one who found Grogu, and after Order 66 he sent him to Mount Tantus to be experimented on. And once the Empire fell, Captain Gorian Shard's pirate group raided Mount Tantus and stole Grogu. That's when the Imperial Remnant put a bounty out for his retrieval. What do you guys think of this theory? Let me know in the comments. So there you go. I gotta say, we are off to a good start, and for my rating of this episode, I'm giving it a solid 9 out of 10. I'm excited for more, and I think we have a solid story being told. This is definitely a Star Wars show that I can watch with my kids, and they actually really do enjoy it too. The only detraction that I have for this episode is that I wanted more.
I want more, and I know I shouldn't.
It felt too short, but it was a tight 37-minute episode that told a lot of story and set us up for season 3. So that's it for me here at Fatherly Fandom for the breakdown and review of chapter 17, The Apostate. What did you guys think of the episode? As always, I'd love for you to share your comments and thoughts. All opinions are welcome, so leave me a comment below and make sure that you like this video. So thanks for joining me today on Fatherly Fandom, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And from our families to yours, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.